Okay, so good evening. It's 7:05, and I want to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And welcome everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. We don't have anyone here for public comments, so we're going to move on to the approval of the September 5th meeting minutes. Motion, thank you, Lauren. Any discussion, any questions, any concerns with the minutes? All in favor? Thank you.
Yes.
So we're going to review of the identified community council feedback. He has that first, this time permitting. I do want to share that in our last meeting, Dr. Marco was asked to communicate with schools to have them share information about CAC. So information was sent out to all administrative principals across the system, saying that the CAC is requesting avenues to promote their efforts to solicit feedback from the community, and if possible, to please include this brief message in an upcoming school newsletter. So the message reads, the Citizens Advisory Council, CAC, serves as a conduit to the Board of Education for public concerns, advice, and information. An email, cac@fcps.org, has been established for community members, parents/guardians, students, and staff who wish to share concerns, topics of interest, and/or issues with CAC. Topics raised in these communications will be discussed by the council and then relayed to board leadership. So that has been shared with staff to see if they will then share in their newsletters for upcoming communication.
I can report that's happened at Fairmont High School.
Fabulous.
Yeah, I think that newsletter that went out Friday, Dr. Franciscan had it featured in the newsletter.
Excellent. So be on the lookout for that wording in upcoming newsletters. So we've already started.
Wonderful.
That was information from Dr. Marco that I've just read out loud.
Yes.
So that's already been taken care
So was that logo in there?
of. The logo was not. I
It's okay.
think it was in the newsletter. I don't.
Did not see the logo, just the
Did not see
text
the logo.
and the email address, of course.
But he's
You
already
you
seen
saw it
it.
before you heard about it?
I saw, actually, correct. I saw it in the cadet newsletter on Friday,
Wonderful.
and I did not realize it was going out as a request. Since
In our last meeting, yes, so we got excellent. Awesome. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Nice to see you. Sorry about the delay.
Well, that's great to know that that went out too. So that kind of gives us a nice segue with our principals too to say, hey, just follow up with that. What meetings can I come to and things like that.
We approve that one?
We did approve the minutes.
Okay.
Yep.
excellent. So we're
And
now
so we're just
on-
starting identifying. I just went to the identified.
Awesome.
And
Actually,
that was feedback from Dr. Marco.
yeah, wonderful. And I did want to actually, okay, I didn't put on here. I did want to, I know this is where the meeting you can call for, it's not going to be a motion. Actually, while it was here, is here. There can be motions made that if they are seconded, can come up and be added to the minutes that are on. Officers. That was not on here. I'm gonna put that on there. Oh, well.
Discussion of bylaws, that should be part of,
It fits.
yeah, that should be who does.
Yeah, because I think we did have a conversation about
Yeah, we did.
doing that.
So it wasn't in there, it is fall in the bylaw, so I guess it's time for that. So bylaws being started.
So I wasn't sure you had time permitting. I wasn't sure what order you were trying to.
So, well, feedback, actually, I just want to put that out there, everybody's minds first. We can go in the order we have here, of course. I just want to get everybody's thoughts, but everybody agrees that it's kind of like under the supervision of bylaws, and that's totally works. So I guess we had community feedback. Not yet. That's coming. So actually, I will say one announcement from staff before we get to these feedback from the council is congratulations. You are officially our, especially with last week, Celeste be our appointed person for the policy committee, if we were so to have the board vote for the revision to 114, to have the policy committee bring on a CC member as a standing member in policy. And that did go through, so congratulations. The team was actually excited about that. Glad to have you at the meeting. So
Yeah.
it's official now. So you guys actually are our official liaison to the policy committee. That's wonderful.
Well,
Thank you
it's
so
official
much.
that we can have someone, it has to be approved by the board.
Oh, yeah, okay, yes, right.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
one more step. That's right.
That'll be done on the 11th.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Keeps me level. Yes, but the
Oh,
next step
for
was
the next-
passed. So you voted here. We're recommending you forward. We voted on the policy to have somebody, so we'll put the person in place. So, yes, so
Yeah.
one more step. Yes.
So can we add to the agenda to have her share out some of her experience at the pub?
Absolutely. That would be
I think
under
that's part of-
feedback. Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, we're safe here. This is a great agenda. Catch up.
Kind of fits in there.
Absolutely.
So if you would,
Oh,
So let's go ahead.
now it's good?
Share,
Now it's
yes,
good?
now
Okay.
it's
absolutely, yeah.
So I was actually really excited about this meeting. It was pretty interesting. It was long. It was over 2 hours, but I took notes the whole time. I had no idea. I was like, oh my gosh, it's 11:30 already. What the heck? So it was a really, if you guys could see, like when we started talking about us being involved in policy, we were like, what? We glazed over and half the people quit. We're like, okay, we're out.
Yeah.
Okay, but if they had seen this discussion and how things evolve and actually get put in place, I mean, I know there's a lot of work behind the scenes that's tedious to get to where this meeting is, but it was really fascinating. So David Bass, Dean Rose, and Ray Gallagher are the board members that are there. Steve Blivis was there too, the chief legal counsel, who I actually ran into in the parking lot while I was looking for a parking space, because on board days, all the visitor spaces are magically overnight turned into board of ed member spaces. I'm like, where am I supposed to park? And then Sarah Sergo, Dr. Sergo, who is the chief of staff, right, for FCPS, was there. So they talked about several different policies. We talked about an ethics policy as related to board members gaining employment after their tenure as a board member.
Can you go up again? I'm kind of curious about that.
That's been in the news for, it's in the news before. And so talked about that as policy 109. They were talking about the waiting period and the ethics behind, do you want to make somebody wait when we're so desperate for good staff members? And, then we talked about the different levels of like a higher level, principal, assistant principal versus a teacher versus somebody else. And like, so they were kind of, they discussed that. They're going to talk more about that in October.
That's the few around.
Yeah.
I've been against that one.
Well, Mr. Blivis is going to do some research on with other LEAs to compare in our geography. So like Northern Virginia and Maryland, and kind of see where we are, where other people are with.
It just
how
comes
they
down to
handle
the
that.
fact that there's someone on the board, there's only 7 of us. So there's a plethora of, like, it's like we're breaking the bank on like hiring things.
Right.
What it comes down to is that like someone can influence the policy and budget and then walk into that position.
Yes, that's
Like,
exactly the conversation.
And here it keeps it to where like you come in as an honest slave. I think it goes to, I think for me, to our fundamental of the nation about relinquishing power.
Yes.
And so for me, it's really about a moral issue. So I don't want to put, I took a lot of hell for that. I'll say, and I even heat hell.
Yeah.
Phone calls to my house, people coming here and talking to me, it was really nasty.
Yeah.
But
Well, I thought it was a good conversation. People were very open about it, and what they thought. And I think that I don't think we're going to do away with a waiting period at all. And that exact point was made that you're voting in your own salary, and then you're going to leave the board and walk right into talked about some other ethics in terms of like teachers providing tutoring and how you can't get paid to be tutoring your own student. We talked about different things in relation to that. So there was a lot of policies and things discussed over those 2.5 hours. But it was a super thoughtful discussion. It was very academic, very research-based, but also very thoughtful and caring in terms of, their passion for what we're doing and how important it really is, really came through. So it was a fascinating meeting, honestly. So I'm going to be a big policy guru now. Like it was really, I'm like, I am so in the right place. Like I was so excited to be there. I had never met David Bass in person, but I had met the other 2 before. So it was good to see them again and just kind of see how it works. Yeah, I know. We communicated on email, but I had never actually met him in person.
Is the committee made up of community members or
It was
board and?
3 board members, and then I think Mr. Blivis is there like every single one, right?
He's
Because
our
it's
legal
like
counsel,
his thing.
So actually, you'll be probably our first official. Our official.
If I get in.
Yeah, community member actually on the policy, committee. She's actually one.
Okay, so it's usually staff or board.
Yeah,
It's
board-
paid
yeah.
SCPS folks
Mhm.
in some capacity.
Yes, and then what happens when it comes through, community gets to see it in that capacity, and it's commented on throughout the process. So usually public feedback, not public action in the process.
Now I understand the role, because I was wondering why we would have somebody double time as a community member serving the policy committee and serving the committee. But now I understand the policy committee is actually.
And that's where change happens. Like, where these tables are here, or these lights are on, cameras are here. There's all types of policy. And people who were before, people who were here, they didn't have the patience, the wherewithal to see that. I had to learn that too. Like, well, I kind of know teacher, but like, just how much that's the wheel turns the ship. And
Yeah.
so you see here that a wheel doesn't always just turn. People will come and just whip the wheel. You can't. It has to be due process. And so that process is too deep for the folks. So
Yeah, I mean, and
persevering.
it turns slowly because it needs to be thoughtfully
Yes.
made. So I do appreciate that as well. They talked about the 400 series of policy and trying to decide how to attack that, because it's a whole, it's like 35, I think.
Is there a theme with those? Like, is there a certain type of policy within the 400 series?
Yeah, it's the whole theme.
It is. And I don't know, hold on,
Yeah,
it's in here somewhere.
the theme is.
200 is attendance, 501 is curriculum distribution.
I'm big on the 500s and 300s, so I have to. look at the
Yeah,
words.
300 has to do with employees, I believe.
Mhm.
Primarily, 400s are probably more curriculum and student-based.
Student-based.
Remember, from pulling it up.
Yeah, I can't remember, but they suggested looking at the oldest first and then adding related ones as they talk. So that's kind of where we're gonna look at
400 series
next.
is gonna be-
So do they want us then to kind of be looking at that to give you feedback?
So 400 will do that, like class rankings, management.
I was just in the audience.
Right.
District, it's actually gonna be school management, like everything from fuel spillage to, honor roll criteria. So it's gonna be the meat of the system, which is why it wasn't turnover so long. Dropout students, mission of non-residents, mission before fuel, contest and activities, computer acquisition. It's kind of like, it's administrative, operations, and so it's gonna be really needful. And actually, I was gonna say, I will also put this out there, that, for instance, like you want to hear 314 political activity. If you see one that's out of sequence, the sequence that the policy committee is working on does not lock us down
Right.
at all. And I've been very open about that, vocal about that, and the board hasn't pushed back at all about that. So what happens is, if you see a policy, it's like, this is policy 100, 105, but I think this needs to be addressed. You bring it up, we'll still push forward. It could be in the series, but they're interrupted. They can be interrupted. They can kind of have their series abutted. Okay, so here came up. This came up. So I think there's a lot in 400. So we won't be starting with all for the choices in 400. My goodness, class rankings, management of headlights.
Yeah, those
So
are
to clarify,
regulations.
Mr. J, that,
Oh,
so like if we discuss, because we've discussed a couple policies now at our meeting. So if we wanted to push forward, you're saying that we could, even if it was out of order of what they're discussing.
yes. And that's
Then we fill out that form, and then Celeste would present it, or you would present it.
It still has to go to Mr. J for him to get 2 other board members
Okay.
to approve to ask for this to be on the agenda.
Okay.
but
And then it would
And then
go,
Celeste could address it.
exactly.
if it,
And Celeste could address any of so I was looking at the policy agenda that was held on the 27th, and I believe the policy 300 personnel is coming back. I believe conflict of interest and employee ethics is coming back to be discussed at the next meeting. So these are things that we can look at and give feedback and talk about in our meeting, so that she has information and can share community feedback for when she goes to the next policy committee. So that's going to be part of our role,
that's not gonna be,
is to discuss what's going to be upcoming at that policy committee meeting, and to share community. Again, we're going to go back to our communities and share information back to Celeste.
That'll be the most powerful action of the committee. I think more so than public comment. Here's why. Public comment is very powerful, extremely powerful. You change
At board
policies.
meetings, public comment.
Yes, that's highly powerful. I think just as powerful is being able to have that feedback concentrated to a direct policy and then be there when policy is being discussed. So like, public comment sometimes, unfortunately how things work, people aren't able to speak on the policy, during its creation. It's already going through a few processes and now it's kind of in the public eye being discussed. So it's kind of the backtrack, but just maybe it's already moving forward. This will be something's infancy. Just getting started. We can speak to it right then and there, which will be powerful. I also want to mention that, again, if the council says, hey, this is something we're looking at, we can, I will advocate for you on policy 2, 3, 4, 5, 700 if it shows up and you get there have a desire for it. So I highly think we should follow their working regulations, but I want to reiterate definitely and have it echo throughout all time that this is by no means our guardrails. With the community, we have concerns, doesn't matter what series the county's in, they can skip that series. So I just want to make that really vehemently in place.
Because you don't need to get support.
Yeah, so for me, for my part, if you guys are passionate about it, honestly, right now, I can think of 2 council members, 2 board members, off the top of my head. If you're passionate about it, they'll go, well, the community wants to talk about it. And actually, it's most board members. Very few, I can think of very few of them, if any at all, who say like, no, I want to talk about that. It came from the public, it's kind of like the trigger, like, hey, what do they want? So you don't have a closed door, go away board.
I think it can be overwhelming to think of. I mean, the policies are just infinite. So,
It seems like
and
it.
the agendas for the policy committee, I mean, it's a lot, and the amount of time that the board of ed can discuss a policy at each meeting, when you have so many other things happening at the meetings and other things besides the policy to discuss. I think you guys can only get discussed like 2 at a meeting. If I'm
It
correct.
depends on the day, and I've been here till like the next day sometimes, so I don't know. Say
And
like
there's a lot.
We can, it's a lot.
Yeah.
There's times when I've seen 3 policies, and we just talk about each one, and like everybody's getting up and I'm like, I can stretch, and then like I go home and it's the next day, so I haven't seen a limit on what needs to get done.
Yeah, I mean, and they go back, they get the research, they bring it back, and that's what Mr. Blows is doing with some of these to come back. Then, like, well, what about this? What about that? Let me go do some research.
And we did
Compare us
change
to other municipalities
the
and
policy 114 to make it a little more efficient, so people get turned over a little better. I think the peer review on the 5, 6 years.
What?
6 years.
For each policy review,
It's 6 years now.
they're looking at a time change.
Yeah.
For that. And the issue is that policy is trying to get caught up and do the reviews. And so there's going to be kind of like a bottom to the board because they can only hear so many each time because of time constraints and discussions, and some get sent, some get approved, some get sent back to policy committee and then back and forth. So they're trying to look at ways to streamline the process and not have as much problem. But again, with quite a few policies in that 400 series coming up, that's going to take some time at policy committee and for the board to then review.
So I thought we passed 114. I'm not seeing it here updated in the policy. I've seen it still 3 years. So we voted on 6. Is that wrong?
Their minutes are not out yet
Oh, okay.
the minutes are not out yet for policy.
I'll
I
check
believe
board-
they
I'll
are
check
for the
board
board.
docs.
Yeah.
Good board docs. But don't mind me. Continue.
One question I had, not to negative word to share, but it just, I think from my, teacher brain, policy has been hard for us to like wrap our brain around because it's a lot and it's overwhelming. A question that I kind of have around that is how does the county, because policy is only as strong as the people who are employed by Frederick County understand the policy and can follow it. So how does FCPS communicate policy to its employees and disseminate that information so that it's
So
not overwhelming and able to be followed?
So it trickles down. Usually policies they formulate and drive regulation. And those are a little more plain letter, straightforward. Here, you shall this, and they're usually truncated. And from those, you usually get training modules. Teachers have to complete, and staff have to complete training modules every year. And there's
I'm
also
still behind on my one from August.
I have like 171 days
But
left on mine.
that's kind of why I'm asking
Those
that,
training, and then
because
there's also those.
there's a lot.
And those department meetings, and those team meetings, and then there's staff meetings. And there's actually emails and like brochures and handouts and posters on the wall. So it kind of comes like this continual washing.
Okay.
And so from the policy, it gets trickled down different ways. We'll get like reminder emails. I know for gun violence, we do a whole every day for the first 6 days. I think it's like a review the policy. There, zero tolerance on guns, play guns, and kind of. So it's just that repeating regurgitation of policy.
Yeah, I know we have some on like as our bathroom reading, so we can.
Yeah.
And you get it like on Constitution Day, like this is what you're allowed. So, like Columbus Day, like this is what our policy is. Updated verbiage.
It's reiterated all the time. Most policies, like the ones for like the fuel oil, they won't see those. But just look at the benefit of those. The staff who are trained on that area, they'll get the same washing in their department.
Okay, I was just curious because I know it does get overwhelming.
It's a
Well,
lot.
if you're not aware of the policy, it's a lot of people spending time on it, but the people who actually need to put it in place need to understand.
And most of it, I think, let's say 80% of it is for staff and students, and then about 20% they actually are functionally using throughout the school day. So they get used to the ones that move them.
So I do think sometimes it would be helpful for the community to be more informed
Oh, absolutely.
on the policy that.
We can never have enough of that.
Yeah.
No. Never.
Engagement. I think engagement is a key. I mean, and that's something that we're struggling with pretty much everything we're trying to do. We try to get families involved and help do things and volunteer for things and just learn something and then give feedback. It's very hard to get a lot of times right now. So I feel like the inundation of information is a lot. So I choose what I pay attention to, and I really have to focus on not paying attention to other things just so I can keep all my stuff straight. So it can be a lot. And I think also, as we move forward, like I want to know what this group wants to learn from the policy committee. Like if there are things that, I don't know, I just went to the one meeting, so I can't, I mean, it was really, like I said, I really appreciated the discussion a lot. And I appreciated the different scenarios that they would bring up to discuss one certain thing. Well, what if this happened? And well, this could happen. And this is why I think this, because this could happen. And so turning over different scenarios and different examples to kind of come to a good consensus and a good decision is excellent. I mean, to me, that's exactly how it should be. You shouldn't agree all the time. And they didn't. I mean, they had really good discussions. So I appreciated intelligent academic discussion because I missed that. So like, this is fabulous. But if there are things that we as a group, I don't know, whatever questions or things that you want me to go find out, just,
I think it'd be nice to go back to like our focus areas a little bit, because I think, we agreed on certain areas like with safety and, so it'd be nice to go back to those areas, have an opportunity, like maybe even just like calendar dates. Could we be part of that discussion? Like we can plan ahead at our meeting for you to go back, whether it's in and out of sequence or not, but just to be able to have that like educated discussion.
There's calendar committee for that one.
I think what would be helpful, I know for me going in, once I get voted, assuming I get voted on officially, then I can be part of the discussion. I mean, being an audience member is fun too. But it would be helpful to talk about like what is coming up on their agenda so that I have your input and us as a group, then we can say, well, here's what we talked about. So I think it'll be a lot more congruency between the two groups. So I'm excited about that too.
And about what you said about what's coming up, even more so is taking that information, giving it to the council members, and going out to the community, as we mentioned earlier, and getting their feedback before time.
Yes.
I think that'd be for the kind of people, it would be refreshing. They're like, oh, this is coming up. So often we're kind of like, people are like, oh, I heard this is happening, or that already happened, or they're doing it tonight. We're like, this is coming up, and they're talking about this. Well, this is what I think about this. When they talk about it, bringing this forward, I think that'll be a real carrot for our community to kind of engage with us. This was coming up. What do you think about that? They'll love to have that. Oh, I get to hear about it ahead of time. That'll just be refreshing in general.
Yeah.
And if we can get to the point where we can take our questions and ideas on topics and get them kind of truncated down to a nice, quick blurb or question, I would advocate for us to get to find out first. And just like this is everyone's in doubt. The CAC was going to get thoughts on X, Y, and Z. So you can give it information. The survey or get us here, this event will be there. I think if we can get that kind of momentum going, I would totally advocate us, and I want to find out first.
Yeah.
It'd be solely us to just see our questions.
Yes.
Well, and I think that would help, I feel like communication is always an area for every school system, every big organization that they're kind of struggling with. And I think that's, because I have come to board meetings, I have given public comment on budget and other things, but sometimes I think it's very hard to understand the system and like what is the discussion. So sometimes if I'm commenting on something, I feel like it's something that's already been discussed.
Mhm.
And it would be nice to feel like it's relevant. The board always makes me feel like it's relevant, but it would be nice. So I just think that is a system that I think would be a good goal for us to really help streamline and make sure that we are getting community feedback that's on target with what the board is discussing instead of them feeling like they're going in a million directions.
I would love that.
And even doing a did you know kind of thing that this is coming up. Reach out to CAC. Did you know policy, whatever, 400
Yeah.
is coming up to talk about security? I'm making up.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
How early
outside of
is their
redistricting.
agenda? So,
That's what people always know about.
So the agenda, I think they're coming up at their next policy meeting, they're coming up with a plan on how they plan to attack the form. So that'll give us a general idea of what that will look like. Are they going to start with the oldest? Are they going to start in order? Are they going to, what's that process going to look like? Once we have that, we'll be able to kind of gauge from there. And their agenda is not released publicly until the same as the board meeting, so 5 days before. However, I'm wondering
Yeah,
if
inside
there
knowledge.
could be some additional information given to Celeste in advance of that. So that's something that we'll have to look into.
I think that part of that system is part of where there's a communication breakdown. Like I understand why the 5 days and releasing and but I think part of that is where we lose public. Because it's hard to understand and navigate that system.
And then in 5 days, not enough time to think about
Yes.
the issue logically, about taking passion.
I'll tell you, they give me 7 days to review those in the fourth.
Yeah.
They go.
Right.
Yeah.
Just go do my homework on it.
I mean, it's a lot, and I think we need to filter down to what we want to focus on. And it's fine if they talk for 2.5 hours. We talk for 2.5 hours about something, but if our group has one thing, we're like, hey, we're really passionate about 412A.
Right.
Okay, well then then I will bring that or what But I think you can't do everything, and I think we really just have to focus on it. Is there something important that we are passionate about that isn't on their list, or what's on their list? And then I really feel like we've got to tie it in.
Narrow it a little bit more too.
We do, because I feel like their agenda is huge. I mean, that the board agenda is huge. And I struggle with, well, how are we going to fit anything else in? Because everything is a lot.
It's
You
just,
know what
it's
I
just
mean?
important and it's passionate and it needs to be addressed. We can fit it in.
Yeah.
And there are times when things supersede other things. And a lot gets done even through some of the noise. There'll be passion events that happen, and whether it's some policy about this or it could be about installation of maintenance or rebuilding the construction or redistricting. That'll be the main thing you hear about. But we're still doing work every day, and so in all that sound of the hot topic, we still get stuff done because the hot topic will get addressed, and so everything else under that. So important to be mindful that, like, no issues too small is important to the community. So.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's not all big news headline. I mean,
Right.
that's the thing. There's things that are just as important.
it's easy to draw a
They
crowd
just aren't a
about
big
redistricting
carrot
or
out there.
about, like, construction or,
Yeah.
it's easy to draw a crowd with that. But
Yeah.
like, drawing a crowd about, like, new fire alarms, that's not gonna take a big
Unless your
crowd.
school doesn't open on time.
Or school.
Right?
That.
I mean, it would draw a crowd if the school buildings can't open because of fire.
Right,
It's true.
yes.
Yes.
So like for me right now, I'm focusing on just making sure when we do build schools, we're building them smart and safe. Right now, I mentioned before that Bruce mentioned about safety. That's something that I kind of harped on, kind of haven't had a briefing on safety in a while. It's been almost a year. We had a briefing on safety. We haven't had one. It's been a year, almost a year and a half. But we have this policy where we have a DIY strategy for implement issues in the building, where, like, teachers will take up their belt or, like, grab a chair, but every teacher can't do that. Consistently able, it could be on a crutch. So that's not good practice. So we should build buildings that have these safety features built in from the start, and retrofit the other ones. But that's a horse to climb. Still working on homework right now, so that's a mountain to climb.
So we're on homework, you said?
Yeah, we're almost there. Like, the board heard me out. We only spoke on that one. We got some movement on possible regulation changes, and the board is cautiously moving forward on inquiring on the policy. We may hear about the whole coming up here soon, but I really want to see changes for our students put in place. And so I got a good reception from the community. It's about taking, because you can have a student who's two different lifestyles. I live across the street. I live 2 hours away. Same amount of homework. I get home, I got chores. But, like, I walk across the street. You wait 2 hours to get home. So the same amount of homework. That's not fair. And then there's a whole gamut in between. So, like, it's really making homework where it's not giving kids a step behind. We have issues with our students. We had, like, the highest rating for 13, 12-year-olds. Like, the number one concern they went to the counselors for, and not the school system, outside the school system. Counselors heard, I'm overwhelmed. Those are because you heard from. So the ones who weren't talking to, they're even more overwhelmed. So we have to respond. So that's just, but an example, if we have an issue, we can push it forward. So, that being said, of our topics, do you, I know you guys remember your topics. That's one of the focus on safety. That's what I believe we have with safety. With safety, one other thing, what was it? Was it buses? What's it better now, though?
Well, we heard a lot when we were just kind of doing our community feedback at the beginning of the year. Transportation was definitely a big one, but I don't know that that's necessarily one of our hot topics. It was just a beginning of the year hot topic.
Okay.
But I do think I think we had that. Are you talking about, like, what we came up with from the whiteboard?
Yes, of those things that came up on the whiteboard.
I think it was food security,
Food security, okay.
safety,
But we have like 15 topics.
and social, emotional, and like cyberbullying.
The top 5 were in this order: physical safety, student behavior and discipline, mental health, food insecurity, and online safety.
And so of those, I'm curious, we take a moment to look at the 400 series and see if any of those align with 400 series. I think you mentioned before student behavior. That is in the 400 series.
Yeah, and that's a big one.
That's a big one. That's actually in the series. Discipline, yeah.
Well, John, you were working on that.
Yeah, Celeste and I were going to dig into it after we looked at copyright regulations policy. But at least my thinking was we were put it on hold until the new, because I think one of our last meetings last academic year, Dr. Marco said they were coming out with a new code of conduct.
We did.
That's, of course, been released now.
Mhm.
But frankly, I haven't had a chance to dig into it. I don't know if Celeste has or anybody else has, but we've been, in my neck of the woods, we've been consumed with the redistricting study and overcrowding issues more broadly. And that's been the focus of my spare time when it comes to thinking about this sort of thing. Plus, I also feel like the new code of conduct needs to be, to percolate a bit and see what the fallout is from that. That was that's where I am.
That's good. That's fair. That's good.
I think it would be, I feel like it's a very prevalent issue right now, especially, just looking at changes in policy with like special education students and restraint and, you know, seclusion and like changing those policies. Obviously, that's been a lot, you know, not digging into that, but looking at how adjustments are, you know, obviously certain changes needed to take place. But now what are what's new research, what's new updates to make sure that everyone is safe? Because I think sometimes now teachers are feeling like, can't do this, but there's a child completely dysregulated, out of control. Other than evacuating the whole classroom, what is left for me? So I think that is just, I mean, I feel pretty passionately about that, and I think a lot of parents do. So I wonder if and I feel like that goes along with a lot of our focus areas of just physical safety, social emotional, because there's a lot of trauma that's causing kids to be dysregulated like that.
Sure.
Or what
So
is
if you,
the visual of that happening to the other children?
right, exactly, what trauma is being caused. So I think there's a lot of pieces of that I feel like if that's part of the 400 series, I would advocate for that to kind of be our focus area, because I think it's a very timely issue that people have a lot of thoughts on, you know, and reaching out to parents of students who are having BIPs and 504s and IEPs to make sure that their voices are heard, but also students, parents that are concerned about safety of their children who are observing this and seeing and what that impact has too.
So then, can I challenge you a little bit more, because we've done a lot in that area.
Yeah.
As you heard, and we've got, we've retrained, we've hired new staff, we've created positions. We have a social education coordinator now that's actually overseeing behavioral health concerns in the schools and retraining. We're going to a new style, I think it's called Heroku, we use for training. So it's been a lot done in that area. So I don't know whether it would benefit council to have staff present what the changes were in implementation. Okay, so we can look into bringing that in. And
I think that would be great, and also just
the area in that regard.
Yeah, and I think maybe even getting and maybe this is already done because I'm not an employee of FCPS, but is there a survey, or how does current staff share their feeling of whether or not they feel like it's enough, that they're feeling that they're trained, that they have the support, they have the staffing, because so much of that is really a challenge. So maybe these things are in place, but are they able to put it in place with the current staff that they have? So that might like go into when we look at the budget and it might go into other policies, but if we focus on this one, you know, how do we attract teachers to want to come to make sure that these policies actually can work?
Well, I think that goes back to the feeling of safety for our students and for our staff need to feel safe. And so they need to feel like whatever they need to do in their course of their day of work, that they can protect themselves, and they don't have to protect themselves, but they can just do their job, and there are safeguards in place for them. I think that's definitely a feeling that hasn't been there in a lot of situations in the past few years. But I think staffing still is an issue. I know that in some places we've got some new community liaisons in some of our schools. Some of our schools had to decide, do I need that or do I need another SEIA?
Right.
And they had to go with the other SEIA because they really needed that. So like,
Right.
well, this new position we don't have. I'm like, well then, but we're not feeding our kids. And so
I think that's what
It kind
one
of-
of the challenges is that I would like to look at. Are the current policies, the changes that the county is putting into place, something that the staff believes will help? And is it just a lack of staffing that's leading to this continuing to be an issue? Or do we need to
Staffing is
continue
definitely
to look
concerned.
at
And I can
policy?
tell you very happily that last meeting, we actually had a report out from staff. And we'll still have them come, but we actually got to 100% staffing in our SEIA individuals. Yeah, so we actually,
That's huge.
Yeah, it was huge. And because I think it took a while, because I think they were looking for warm bodies.
Yeah.
For quality folks, so it took a few months, but they had 100% staffing with quality folks in position. So, and I've gone out to schools like Blue Heron and met the staff on hand, just like
In the pyramid program.
this year. Yes, they've just been phenomenal.
That's great.
And like, they called him, I forget his actual name, because they called him the Iceman. I think his name was Tyrone Tony. He was very instrumental in keeping the kids, centered and redirecting them back to class. But I'm so sorry, I forgot, we called you the Iceman. So Iceman and Blue Heron. They said he was cool under pressure, so they called him Iceman. But it was great meeting staff and seeing how hard they work. And one thing I want to do is to show we can pay them appropriately.
Yeah.
That's going to be very big for us going forward. Like, put the money in the pockets of staff who are meeting these needs for us. I know Ms. Bass is very big on that as well.
I'm not familiar with the acronym. Is this for like a?
Oh, SCIA is social education, special education instructional assistant. Basically, aides in the classroom, helping teachers out when they're actually.
So they're kind of like the first line if the kids are,
Yes.
getting dysregulated. Yep.
Real ones who are like
Yeah.
IEPs, like reading, close reading sometimes, or maybe doing small group setting testing, but breaks for like, just needs for intermittent breaks, that kind of thing. They're kind of, they're right there person. Some of them are stationary in the classroom, the other ones float, but they're instrumental in getting kids services they need, helping them actually, and make the school day successful. So I want to make sure that they're paid properly.
Just so you understand the process, when a policy goes to policy committee, there's usually a staff person that comes and represents and discusses that policy. So in this case, last time Dr. Sergo was there because we were talking about a lot of chief of staff, HR employee items. But other times when it's like about special education, then the director of special education would be there, and so other staff. So you're getting that subject matter expert along with the board members, the 3 board members, and Mr. Willis, so chief. So that again, just want to make sure that everybody understands the process well. But having some of that information up front, again, can help us to provide information and be able to be engaged in a conversation and share information.
Yeah, well, and I think it goes into mental health because it's not just students with special needs who are struggling with dysregulation right now. So really looking at that. So I don't know. So I would propose that be our area that we kind of focus and look at policy, like what policies are impacted by that. So I feel like it encompasses several of our focus areas.
I'm looking at, just glancing at the 400 series right now, we do have policy 409, which is promotion of health and wellness for students, which may be, again, the 400 series may be a focus to address some of those concerns. And again, remember the policy is more broad, and then you're going to have a lot of the regulations. But providing some of that feedback as to what the intent from the community, what they're looking for, could help guide some of that regulation. But the regulations are normally discussed at policy. That's at a separate location. So again, we're looking big picture.
Are the regulations discussed at the board, or is that all SVPS administration?
That is through a committee with the superintendent.
The living room, that one, we asked about?
To create regulation.
Oh, the education task force, yeah.
So there's a committee made up of staff, senior staff, other staff members, community also as part of that committee.
That's
Somebody board too,
the
or just
board, we get feedback from that committee. I think that's gonna be, Dr. Marco and we appointed associate superintendent of education, soon Dr. And so what I'm hearing is like, here's what I took in from that. I was writing down notes. I apologize for a second. What I got from that is that we're looking to hear from staff, are the changes made to our personal education beneficial? What changes have been made? And then push for staff to present on those changes. And then to look at policy in light of those changes and updates and see if we can make changes support what's been requested from DOJ and parents. So we heard from, I want to make sure we don't, so here's the thing. We have CCAC, which is a Child Education Committee. We have the task force, who was formed in light of the DOJ report to make recommendations to the board to make changes towards improving our process.
So we might be overlapping so much with that.
Yeah, and actually they did a lot of great work.
Okay.
And the recommendations were phenomenal. We've implemented a good bit of them. I think we have a few still to implement, but we've implemented a lot of those changes are recommended by the task force that was put together for that. So I feel like hearing from staff on what changes were made would kind of help us speak to policy about that going forward. What wasn't done, the task force, they didn't tweak the policy. They said, this should be implemented, should be done, but there are probably some gaps there where like policy could be updated to make sure that it happens especially. So that's definitely probably a look for policy.
Maybe we do look more at health and wellness of not just our special ed population, but the health and wellness, trauma-based,
And the thing is, like, just like in the classroom, it's good for one student, it's good for all students. Like if teaching is good, if it's good or close, percent of time. Those kind of measures are good for IEPs, are good for every student. So like wherever we find that can speak to our process of education, then help every student. So, but I want to ask the council that you're looking at here and rebutts to that, so that we're kind of where we want to go with this, or our current focus. We're looking at policy, but what direction do you want to go in education, or do you want to just kind of come back and wait for the community to give Celeste a readout of what we're going to do next? Are we in a holding period for what's our next focus, or are we going to wait for just take our motions and go?
So the only discussion right now is that they're going to be working with 400 to lead up for the rest of it.
Yeah, so they're gonna come back and in the next meeting, they're gonna come up with a game plan on the order in which they're gonna attack the 400 series of policies. I think the general feeling is they don't want to go from oldest to youngest because that may not be the most relevant. So they were gonna look at those and kind of pick some of the older ones and then see if other ones are relevant to those, like say 401 and 410 are related. So then they might group this together. So Mr. Blewis was gonna go back and kind of come up with a game plan to present. And he sat here at this desk, and then the 3 board members sat up on the dais. So he was presenting to them a lot, and then the discussion went back and forth, of course. So anyway, that was where they kind of like, we don't really want to go oldest to youngest, but we had to find a place to start. So finding some older ones that look like they need to be updated, and then maybe find some that are related. So
that's very helpful. I think they work on oldest and youngest. So in that regard, then, do we want to take a moment to look at the 400 series and see where our priorities fall in that series? The series actually is very in-school based. There's things like, I just looked just now, it's looking at student discipline, looking at, let's see, discipline, it's looking at, here it is. Delegation of duties, this is for staff, I imagine it's for staff. I'm looking at let's see here, graduation, family partnerships, education at home, hospital education, student records, gang activity. So safety is in there. I'm seeing safety, so it's discipline. I'm seeing community partnership. So this is actually good for us. This is really where we kind of landing on community connection, student discipline, and safety. That's all in the 400 series. So I wonder if it's time for us to look at this series and take our concerns to the series and kind of like have timely. Right now, we kind of have an idea where they are going, so we kind of are already there. We can look at what the 400 series and directly and what our lens of our top priorities and give free feedback about where they should be looking at for changes. So we can kind of give them a starting point for what they consider in policy. I really appreciate that. I know for me, hearing from the community on a certain topic makes my job much more, you know, just, it lightens the load, 'cause I know where the community is, so I know where to start from. A lot of times you can have, you know, what you think is best or what's in your mind, what you experienced, what you heard from a few folks. When the community speaks, it really kind of sheds light, either confirms something or changes the angle, so you can kind of make a better decision. So I think for us getting our hands on the Forward Series now is a good thing.
Yeah, I think by the time we, you know, if there are some things that really catch our attention in terms of what our priorities are, gives us a little bit of time to go out and, you know, see what people think, you know, if we pick a couple things to target.
Right.
Because at the next policy meeting, there's a lot of these that we discussed at this past one, they're gonna discuss again. The 400 series, the discussion of how to proceed with the 400 series is gonna happen at the next October meeting, but they're not gonna touch anything until November with that, I think.
Okay, we can be right.
So I think there's, 400 is not coming up on October 26th, like that's gonna be,
And we mentioned
November,
cybersecurity, technologies in here. There's skilled students in here, attendance in here, different activities.
Bullying, harassment, and intimidation.
There's a lot in here. Suicide prevention and training, equity and excellence. My goodness. So there's a lot of. Basically, this is like the heart. This is actually, I was almost supposed to the heart. This would be like stuff you see every day.
Yeah.
This is the SCPS parents
Family
engagement.
meeting,
Yeah. Yeah, this is the one that the community engages with us the most.
So when we say 400 series, we're going past 400 dash, we're going to 401, 401.
So you go to the very top, so Rachel, this one here, it says policies or regulations, you can select one.
Oh, no, I mean,
no, it's all the 400, yes.
but it includes, but not just the
Regulations?
number 400,
Right.
but the 400 to 499.
Yes.
So the,
Because there's 99 and
no,
just
you wanna go to
400.
only 400s only.
Just
So
the 400.
regulations are gonna be superintendent's purview. So we can't tweak those. We could recommend things.
These are regulations.
Anything with the dash is a regulation.
Yeah, that's a regulation, so it's a policy.
Oh, so 400, there's 99.
Yeah, that's gonna be your regulation. Those are derived from the policy.
If you scroll, if
But
you
you go-
show them where to scroll over to choose just.
Go right up here and select
Okay.
show. You can put
So you can
policies.
select only policies when you're.
There you go.
And then
Okay.
Thank you.
it helps some. I still have selected and put some order for me, but I still see regulations.
Oh, yeah, we went from 6 pages to 2.
Yeah.
So the next policy committee meeting is not scheduled till October 25th. Their minutes are not out yet from the prior policy committee. As soon as they're out, I can share them with you and share the video with you if you all want to watch the 2 hours. Or, again, you can scroll to, if there's a policy that you feel is of interest, that you want to talk to other community members about, you can scroll to that area, or review in the video, watch the video, read the minutes, and then again, give feedback, because of a lot of those policies, as Celeste said, are coming back for the next meeting. And then by the time we meet again, you should have some additional information and guidance from the policy committee about what will be coming up in the November 20th. So we have some time to kind of set up a game plan.
And I will not be at the November 14th, but I can email what happens, what's going on, we can communicate that. I mean, although I know we're an open committee, so I don't know how much communication we're allowed to do that way.
If you want to have something shared on board docs, then we can absolutely, so if you want to write up a summary,
Okay,
then absolutely, that can be shared, that
That's
just have to be
okay.
public also. And
I wasn't sure what the appropriate way, yeah, because I know I will not be at the November. Sorry.
Yeah, so if you want to do that, that might be helpful anyways, to have a summary. write
Sure.
up, So that, different ways to access the information.
Okay.
So that'd be great if you're able to do that.
So I guess for us, we're just kind of, it's time to review the 400 series. It's kind of where we are. And then while you're doing that, as always, community feedback is always welcome. So in the light of this is fun, something in there. Now, it's been updated for the student code of conduct. Is that in here?
And if there's discipline, I don't see that that's a big policy.
So it's not in here yet, it's not tied to it at all, there's no link to it, I think that. Is it?
Would that be
I
a
know there would be a link
regulation
to
or
it.
would that be a policy?
Discipline policy.
So you can,
Would the code of conduct be in the regulations or would that be a policy?
it'd be a regulation, but I'm just wondering, like, is there a link to it, because like, it's kind of tied together. Like, I imagine a link to it would be, that's something we can recommend there, they have a link to the current code of conduct.
Maybe in the regulation. I don't see it.
I'm just curious, so I think those two should kind of be connected.
So you have some feedback already.
Connect discipline and the code of conduct.
Yeah, a link to it, yeah.
And so I guess a pathway could be any of the 400 policies that sparks your interest. You could start talking about and start gathering feedback. And that way, again, we know that the 400 series is going to be addressed one way or another. And then again, sharing that information as you get it or at any point, slash you can have a running list. And when they start bringing it up, we can go from there.
Yeah, I'm just, right now I'm just looking at 437, bullying, harassment, and intimidation. But I guess what's hard about it is it's just very vague that we don't condone it. But
And the regulation for bullying harassment goes into the details. And
right,
that's where the.
but that
implementation-
but that's not what we are discussing.
That's not what we're discussing. However, there could be a suggestion to consider.
Because that's where we could add like cyberbullying or,
Yeah,
Into the
so
policy part.
is the policy not going to identify what they're talking about? That's going to be left to regulation. Seems like the policy would identify, the regulation says how we address.
I believe the policy will have a spot on it for related regulations.
Should be bottom.
I think, yeah, but these are, again.
Yeah,
this was last-
yeah. If you see Alvin on it, that means it's super.
Well, this looks like it's been revised. I'm looking at the bullying, harassment, and
17.
intimidation, and that's been revised in 17. So there's a new format, there's new, and there would be links and some other information in the new one. However, whatever information that you hear back from the community or come up for while you're looking at these, could be something shared with Celeste, because again, we're the public looking at these policies and understanding them. And so sharing that information that it's not clear, or how does this look, that could be helpful also for the policy.
Maybe like a summary, something like a light summary somewhere. What would help? Yeah, we'll make it more readable. So. That's it.
Well, that's what I'm trying to wrap my
And
head
maybe
around
look
a
at
little bit.
other LEAs and other systems, like how they do their policies. This one here looks really great. Actually, speaking of which, I can tell you right now, spark my memory. I was looking at other LEAs and how they do their staffing and hiring, because I'm sure we're always competitive. And another county, should not be named, no shout outs. That county gives their benefit summary at the top of the salary scale. The salary scale, usually counties do salary scale, just numbers, boom. But they say on top of their salary scale, they have a kind of a highlight of their benefits. So you're seeing like, the medical, dental, all the different highlights, then the salary. That's a good marketing tool. I was like, oh, that's impressive. That's
Yeah.
my daughter's about to become a teacher. I'm like, that's pretty good to see that. So we don't have that. So I want to add that to what we're doing. So finding other examples are really good. And education, the great thing about education is you can just, I'll do that now, so add to what you're doing and just borrow it, tack it on. So it may not be that our policies are the best written. Maybe there's something, just some add-on, some similar at the top, some kind of one little thing that makes it more readable. So if we can find that in another county, like, that happens a lot. You hear Mr. Glover say, oh, I'm gonna look at other LEAs about that. So he's doing that too. He's looking at other systems and like, oh, they're doing that better than us. So we can branch out of where we are and pull it from the best around the world. That's what we're doing.
And his team does that all the time.
Yeah.
They're constantly, that's what they're doing, so.
We can do it too.
And John and I had that discussion with him when we were talking about the copyright policy. We talked about that briefly because it was a pretty easy policy to discuss. Sort of open and shut. We follow the law, period, end of story. Until that changes, we're good. But he had just come on board with
Mhm.
SCPS, and so he was talking about policy 114, policy development policy, and he said, well, you know, if we want to review, but to change the policy on policy is, you know, this. And so I know 114 was big on his mind from when we talked to him in May. It was May, right?
We just voted on
Um,
this.
He'd only been in for 3 weeks, you know, and he was like, what are you guys doing? Because that's what my department's doing. I said, well, great, we're all gonna do it together, but we're gonna do this piece, you know, so it was good to kind of, you know, okay, well, and then, you know, he did bring up the policy on policy development and,
Actually, from that,
you know,
from that chat is where we got the CSE advisor on policy committee.
yeah,
Actually, that's something that happens that LEAs were doing, and that's what brought that idea. So going out to other areas.
because he likes us, Sean. No, it was a good discussion, but I think it was a good fresh perspective. Him just coming in and saying, well, this is what I want to do. And he's like, wait, we can't do that right now because this is the way the policy reads. So he had some really good ideas on making some changes. I appreciated his discussion in last week too. So
Yeah, so I mean, just, this does not mention cyberbullying, just as an example, you know, and it
Which one is
just
that one?
talks, bullying, harassment, intimidation.
Really?
so do we
I
need to
mean,
look?
unless I'm,
This was like one of those butts, like disjunct schedule. That should be added to there. Wow.
But I wonder if,
well, it says if it affects, like you could read between the lines, but no, I
should be
think it needs.
stated. I mean, we're,
Because it says if it occurs on school property, at a school activity or event, on a school bus,
this is the
or
electronic.
substantially disrupts the orderly operation of a school.
But
and
actually
I-
also mentioned electronic flat out. Electronic does not mention that at all.
Not connected to this, it might be somewhere else.
So that should be pretty plain. I would think that would have a person basis of electronic distribution.
My guess is being that it was written in 2010,
Oh, yeah.
that it was overlooked then, and it was probably just glossed over in 2017, saying that we accept this policy, we don't condone bullying, any form of it, but again, that, you know, remains to be seen.
Right,
that's
so
a-
Now
now we're
somebody
building,
can twist that.
yeah, it was reviewed in 2017, but
it's a whole different,
that
way
was
this-
before that was before virtual learning, that was
Yeah.
before.
and the way this reads, we're talking about on school property disrupting the school day. Cyberbullying happens at home, on the bus, like on your phone.
I guess
At
it
the
might be
mall.
overreach though, then I think that the school board is not responsible for what somebody does on Facebook at home. to another
We-
student.
And
You know,
that's
the
where-
best of
Well, I mean, if
students.
it happens in the school day, someone can take a picture of somebody in the
Yeah.
cafeteria
Yes.
and then put it on
Post
a
it.
funny face, or whatever, and show it to their friends on the phone, or send it through a text.
Yes.
So I
happens
think
all the
that could happen, you mentioned before, on school grounds, right?
If it's
So it's something
disrupted
relevant,
to
I
school
can just see
grounds.
how they might have glossed over it, saying,
Yeah.
we don't
Right.
overreach.
But
But I
maybe-
just think, because that's where then one administrator could interpret it one way, and another administrator can interpret it a different way.
All right, so
And that's where it's not consistent in how,
here's the process. Sometimes, some things are as simple as email switch. So other things are probably just fill out a form. So in this case right here, do we send a quick note to the committee, or do we just do a full form? I don't know. Actually, well, we just voted on and we approved the new form for policy changes. So I can fill that form out for us. This is something I totally be on board for, to get them to at least review and give us feedback on, like, oh, well, as it stands, this legally covers the nebulous ground of all things. But nothing was mentioned about electronic or bullying. Those phrases weren't in there.
right,
So, I've seen other committees make changes just as simple as that, like going from the word, student to all students. It's just as simple as saying all students has been a big push from the committee. So I think it's not small. It's a good catch.
yeah, I think if it's something that involves a student and their welfare outside of school as well as on school, I think that's.
Okay, so we have a policy update.
Well, and I'm curious about if there's another policy somewhere else that might cover electronics.
But bullying and harassment should mention electronic bullying and harassment.
It should.
Don't second guess yourself.
It
That
does
was a
not
great
mention
catch.
social media, it doesn't mention any of it.
That's a great catch. Don't second guess yourself.
I mean, unless I'm missing it, can somebody else double check that?
No, I read the same
I
thing.
didn't see it in the definition.
There's nothing like, it talks about, on school property.
And a disruption.
Actually, you know what? It actually, under definitions, it does say,
Okay,
as used in this policy, bullying, harassment, or intimidation means intentional, not intentional, conduct, including verbal, physical, or written conduct, or intentional electronic
there we
communication
go.
I was
that
thinking
creates a
before.
hostile educational environment by
Electronic.
substantially interfering with the student's educational beliefs. I'm
Okay.
sorry, benefits, opportunities, or performance.
So it's at the very bottom then, was
It's
it?
under,
No,
it
it's
is
in
under
the
definition.
lead up, yeah.
Definition, okay, so it's in there. I was wondering if that should be in there. So it is in
I
there.
just wonder if like you could, I mean, I guess it is left bit, I don't know.
Well, I mean, we can still ask for it to be more forward facing.
So the regulation has some additional definitions, including cyberbullying and other, and again, that's
Oh, it does?
part of
Okay.
what
The process.
that process is gonna be in updating those policies. Is to make sure that, again, everything is connected and to ensure that the policy is updated with current information and wording that correlates to the regulation.
I mean, I think the term cyberbullying in 2010, not sure that was really a thing. So,
So I
but it
have
took us
here-
a while to find that, and we were all just looking at it.
Right.
We're
Well,
all
I
looking at
was,
it.
I was looking at the bullets, and that was where I got sidetracked, didn't look through the
Well, and it's on like the,
forest to the trees.
yeah, in the little paragraph, so.
Yeah.
It's not out there, and it's not a bullet, and it probably should be highlighted.
I feel like
as a
I feel like it needs to be highlighted more and to have some kind of discussion of social media on school, off school grounds.
Yeah, that's a complex issue.
I know I wasn't a terrible kid, but I did a terrible thing one time. And I had the peer pressure, let's say that. I threw a stick in a kid's bike, but not essentially the handlebars. It was at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It wasn't at our bus stop or even that person's bus stop.
Mhm.
But I got in trouble at school for it. I had to, it was an elementary school.
We've
I
had
actually, believe it or
situations-
not, I had to sit in a closet during
Oh.
an assembly. It's public school. Virginia Beach. My mom was a teacher there too. She probably told them that's okay.
Parents, and-
She probably did.
look at you now.
The time clock was in there, and I remember hearing that clicking the whole time.
But no, and I think some administrators do that. Like, I mean, we knew a kid was being bullied by a middle schooler. We called the middle school and so I think a lot of administrators are pretty proactive about it. But I do just think there could be some consistency and some straightforward
So-
language in the policy.
Let me make sure I'm hearing this correctly. So you're saying like, there's a balance there when it comes to like, external action. I think your mom being there probably added some.
Right.
So to that. So like, if two kids had like, altercation in the street, the counselor and teachers may really know about it, but then like, you don't, you really wouldn't necessarily, I got students before, we knew to keep so-and-so separated. They had a fight back in the neighborhood at home.
Yeah.
When they come back to school, I can't say, hey, you fought at home, I heard you fought at home. I didn't witness it, I didn't, just heard about it from hearsay. I'm gonna be mindful of those actions, but I can't punish a kid because they were doing that.
No, but I think also if you look at the definition of what bullying is, it's usually not an isolated incident.
No,
So it might involve
So-
social media intimidation, but then they're also like, oh, I'm gonna post this picture of you coming out of the bathroom.
well,
or-
and those are
That's-
actionable things in the school grounds, but I think we don't want to get teachers penalizing students for hearsay or actionable actions that happen in the street. Those are more civil matters, I think, would happen with other agencies. So I don't know if that's the best move for us to include if a kid did action outside in the street, to put that in the discipline policy. In the school system.
No, I just think tightening up the language.
Okay.
So I don't know, I mean,
So we have, I see we have fertile ground with the Florence series. So what I have
well,
right
you can
now,
also look at other things. That was just like a little
Well, that's what
5
I mean, but
minute.
that fits what we talked about. It
Yeah.
has discipline, what we talked about, it has the health and wellness, which could kind of play into the food security.
So do we
I haven't
have
opened
that?
up any others, but
I I will run forward with the harassment policy, social media call out. I'll step forward to the policy committee.
Because even if it, social media happens, say bullying starts at home, it's undoubtedly going to carry into
Right.
school.
Yes,
Uh,
those lines are
regardless.
so blurred now. with
Right,
all
but
the
I'm
technology.
trying to clarify what you want me to do with that. Like you want to see changes where there's consequences in the school system because of that?
Well, that would be regulation, so we're not.
No, just like in terms of like even recommending kids in trouble for something that happened outside the neighborhood.
I think it's important in the, looking at the policy the way it's written,
I'm sorry, John.
as long as it took us to find the word electronic in there,
Mhm.
I think you can use that to create a hostile environment in the school system. And I think that when it affects that, the way I read this policy, that's where the school system is gonna wanna step in, or is gonna take this to mean, okay, well, now this is something we need to,
Yeah, they're gonna
Deal.
address it, they're gonna make changes in the environment because of that, but I want to make sure that I don't believe the school's going to start, the kid won't walk in from having an altercation at home and then what to do with a switch in school.
no,
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying.
Okay,
No.
okay.
not at all. No, this is more just making sure that cyberbullying and the electronic element is more highlighted in
Yes.
the policy.
Yeah,
under bullying.
and I have that written here to
Yeah,
send out to my
that's
my
really it.
colleagues. I'll just do that now.
Yeah.
actually.
But if I'm the policy committee and I have scores, policies to look at,
Mhm.
this one includes the word electronic communication already.
Right.
Right. Took us a while to find it, maybe, but maybe that's a critique of us. Let's say it is policy. But I just think we need to focus on where we're going to get a big bang for it.
Yeah,
And I fear that if we go to the policy committee and say, oh, you need to add the word cyber,
right.
If we're just talking about adding a comma on
I
another.
feel like it's not,
Yeah.
it's not weighty enough. It doesn't fill a gap,
And
frankly.
that could wait until they get to
That
that
can
one.
wait till they go
and
around
then
to
we
it.
can
And
push
if,
that.
if you look at the very last line of that same PDF page, the definition there includes anything that substantially disrupts the orderly operation of a school.
That's pretty
Holy
cool.
smokes, then you could drive a truck through that, right? So that gives administrators, in my view, plenty of space to take something that maybe is kind of marginal, but was clearly bullying, but didn't occur on school grounds or on a bus, but nonetheless affects kids in the classroom. Okay, you've got the room to do something, right? So I guess I don't yet hear something that rises to the level of, my God, the policy committee, and all the dozens of things they're wrestling with, needs to look at this today,
No, I agree.
right?
Well, and that I can definitely, I see it both ways, and I will say, yes, there are definitely a lot. And, but sometimes I will say, I've seen them make changes for just one word. So I lean to the.
Maybe we should put it on the list, but I agree. I think we need to keep looking at other policies that are really having gaping holes.
There could be better targets,
Yes,
right?
I
And
agree.
we don't want to make a nuisance of ourselves. We want to come across as, adding value, and I think we should continue the analysis.
Well said.
But here's a question, so through this conversation, if we did put a form in, like you were talking about doing, so historically, we don't have a lot of experience with this process, right? So does that elevate it to them to say, oh my gosh, the committee, the CAC is dying to talk about this, or is it
I
like,
can tell you that if we submitted a formal request, it would, because it came from the community and this council, it would carry weight. It would, because we are a formal board council. And actually, I will tell you, out of the many board committees we have, this council is, to my knowledge, one of the few, if not the only one, that's required by law. Which is another, the fact that what it does, it works with the community, it is required by law. Well, I joined the board, I asked for this council. Because like, we didn't have a standing. I said, I want to get a standing. And it's community connection, and it's required by law, so.
And John, to your point, if something is brought to policy committee, they, as a committee, normally don't just look at that one word. They're gonna, if it rises to their level, if they need to do a review, they're gonna do the full review, normally at that point. It may bump it up in the chain, but it's not only about that one word. They look at the whole policy when they run it. they may focus that this was brought up by CAC to address this issue. But we also want to put it in a new format, we also want to look at this, and, and then it's up for discussion. So if there's anything else that comes up, then the board members.
I think one of the importance is that it does fall in line with our, back about a year ago, probably, the goals. I do agree that it would probably behoove us to hear how they plan to attack it, get an idea of how it's going to roll out, and then we come with our suggestions of our topics, or if in that time we review some and we're like, whoa, that fuel oil spillage on the display. So anyway, that just tongue in cheek. So I think to sit back and wait, review, and figure out what. But I think that one in particular, as well as the discipline, as well as the wellness, would fit the committee's goals.
And October is National Bulletin Board.
Thank you. This is what I have written up so far. So bullying harassment policy has no direct call to cyberbullying, social media, etc. Only a light reference to a communication. The committee recommends updating the policy to include more direct call to cyberbullying, social media, and AI references. That's something actually right now that I will tell you as a board and as a industry in general education, people going like this. Oh yeah, redistricting, and oh yeah, we have books over here, and oh yeah, there's that. But AI is like right there, like, oh yeah. It's like, that's hello. And even at the college level, I have college students, and like, they're professors, and I'm like, write me a 300-word essay. I'm like, my kids are at home like struggling over essays. I'm like, I ask my kids, like, do they bring up AI at all? And they're like, no, not really. And just like, it just said, and my son goes, I just assume they don't use it. And there's ways to use it where you're not cheating, but he has peers he knows who just cheat. He's like, I can't see. He gets really frustrated. He's like, I'm working my tail out here.
Yeah.
They're just putting in a few prompts and like that. So it's like, we have to address that too.
There are some schools that are going back to paper and pencil for that reason.
I would imagine that would be great.
Yeah.
Actually, with my classroom, I now do check-ins, live check-ins. I do live demos. Kids that come up to me and demo the knowledge one-on-one because I don't want them just popping into a machine. So that's something, I don't know how we get that on the radar, but that needs to be, that bell needs to run on that one. Because
Well, and I do think, yes, along those lines, like, Howard County, we have technology teachers that are, and there are a lot of.
They didn't have policy, they addressed it. We have no policy on AI.
But they are definitely looking at, we are really behind in a lot of cyber safety things with kids.
We are.
So I think it could be an important thing to look at, to
This
be
could
like,
be-
so we're not 2017, let's look not just even at like 2023, let's look at, okay, before it really becomes that we're behind so much.
So then I totally agree. So do we look at the form? So the form, you have the form when you ready?
I mean, even just a policy on how does the county stay up to date on technology concerns? Like, is there a policy on that, on having technology experts come in and review, making sure that we are up to date on what is the safest? Does that make sense? Sorry.
No, it does. And how are the teachers? I know
Trained.
vividly remember last year walking into one of our science teachers' classrooms just to say hi. She was on planning. And she didn't even say hi. She was so angry. She's like, Celeste, do you understand what is happening with these essays and AI? I'm like, I absolutely have no idea what you're talking about. Thank goodness. But she let me know quick. And I'm like, it blew my mind. And that was about a year ago.
Because the kids are going to be having, if we tie it back to cyberbullying, they will find ways to use technology well ahead of the adults. When we were doing virtual learning, they figured out how to send out Google Meet codes, and they were meeting up without supervision.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, the teachers didn't know how to do it because they were just trying to survive virtual learning.
Yeah.
So I just think there needs to be a general policy on how do we try to stay ahead of the game instead of waiting every 5 years to update some of these policies when things are changing every month.
And
Okay,
the
so I have a
things
new one
tech,
here.
it
How the
changes
CPS
so
technology
fast.
safety and AI concerns. How the CPS keeping up with student technology use. Okay. These are very timely.
I think those are super pressing, and I think they would relate to the 400 series, of course. But yeah, the fact that we
So-
don't have any of that stuff, and I think that's gonna involve a lot of research and study and collaboration.
This right here, I think what I've written just now would fit the situation, concern, and what, why, academic information, stats, questions, change. Let's go ahead and I'm going to throw in the Howard County AI policy, if you have one, because we don't have one, so we're back up. Let me see. This is, let's see. Yes, very quick, somebody look right from the report. We usually don't have a policy on it, and other counties do, so we gotta get our act together.
Now we just had to get out of our contract with the AI tool that we were using to find AI.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And because it was flagging folks that were clearly, not really cheating with AI, and it was also being somewhat discriminatory against English as a second language folks.
Because you're using like Google Translate or something versus
Yeah.
actual.
So they just said, the new approaches, the faculty has to start making assignments that are AI proof or resistant. I guess. And that's
classroom.
Pardon?
Written in the classroom.
Yeah, a lot. That's what most of my stuff. I've realized how much stuff I have to grade now, and I really overdid it. So,
Yeah, that's why I do.
because we were using Canvas and having things graded that way.
I've seen Canvas hacked with AI. It's crazy on TikTok.
Really? That's what we use.
Kid downloaded an extension for
I have
Canvas.
fourth graders.
And yeah, he downloaded an extension for Canvas, and then he was sitting in
We stick it
he was sitting in like Harvard's library. He downloads an extension for Canvas and goes like this, and the thing goes through his Canvas quiz and just scored everything. It was insane. Yeah. And so,
They don't have to like learn
What
anymore. They're
I
just
think that's what happened. It goes back to authentic assessment. Authentic.
Yes.
So that's why I was talking to my customer. It's taking me forever, but it's authentic. I'm like, I do. All right, guys. I bring them down to my desk. We do one question with me, but we go over the content, and you got it. You got it. You don't. And so I know each kid where they are. So it's like it's teaching, but it's technology.
That's actually anecdotal.
Technology came back and bit us in the leg. Yes, so our bylaws,
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
no,
got
we're at
time. Yeah,
time.
we gotta,
We're at time.
we
So,
can do this quickly.
can we? Yeah,
I brought the minutes from the last.
awesome.
meetings.
So we wanted to
We're gonna
change.
move on to bylaw.
Yes, thank you, Sabrina. Thank you very much.
Won't take long.
No, we just want to change it to, the phrasing for, members being able to recommend. So we had the question about, who recommends, a non-approaching member for removal. And we did that, and we said that officers who we recommended. We had concerns with officers who weren't being in duty. So I think we wanted to change that phrasing about. And we said. So the phrase we had was an officer may be removed from membership through a majority vote of committee approval. Okay.
We had it, and then we created that language, but we haven't.
We haven't voted on it, so we need a
Yeah.
motion to vote it in.
That's the
Okay.
wait, right?
So
And then the
again,
meeting dates. the
Oh.
announcement.
yes.
The other one. Those were the two changes.
Okay, so we had two small additions. Thank you so much, Sabrina. Oh, you're amazing. So I'll read this again for the benefit of the council. So we wanted to make a small wording change to our bylaws. So the section 3 addition, and we'll say this: an officer may be removed from membership after missing 3 meetings through a majority vote of the committee and approval of the Board of Education. And add that language. Then we wanted to have this also added. Members are, the
Just the meeting.
oh, sorry, yeah, sorry.
Just the meeting.
Yeah, so meeting dates will be announced the first meeting of each school year. Those two additions. That's it. Bylaws. Anybody have a motion for that? With that?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Adjourn.
So, all in
So we
favor?
all.
Passes unanimously? Yeah.
Yeah, I said
Yeah.
it.
Who was the second one?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
yeah, we're still.
Yeah.
So Celeste and Warren.
John.
Johnson.
And Will was right there.
It was like four.
It was-
He was right in.
We know how to be efficient with
Very much
the.
so. That was awesome. So we are at this time adjourned.